Oh, I think it's live. It says this hangout on air is live. Hello.
Oh, hey.
Okay. All right. So, what's up, everyone? This is actually my first Google Hangout live that I'm actually conducting. So, everybody give me a round of applause. But this is not really about me. This is actually about Emily. I don't know how many of you guys may know her, but she has her own YouTube channel. She's an INFJ, and we actually have our first time ever meeting on her page. And I just wanted to give her the opportunity to introduce herself to us. She's really awesome, and we're just about to have like a really dope interview and discussion on a few things because it's been a while since we were able to catch up. But anyway, yeah, Emily, tell us about it yourself.
Yeah, that is crazy. When did we first talk? Like when was our first thing that we did? Do you
I
remember?
think that we first spoke in sometime around August.
Wow.
Yeah.
It has been a while. You got married in that time too.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was literally like, that's why I think I remember it. It was like August, or early September. I think it was around August. And that was, you guys have to go and see that interview. Like, I think that was a really great video, and she has so many more, so much more. Like,
Yeah,
on
I'm taking
her
a
channel
break
now.
for during February, but there's definitely enough content to go around.
Yeah, that's another thing. So I had to catch her tonight because she's going to pretty much go on a social media hiatus for the whole month of February. And I was like, oh no, well, we have to get this in before you leave for a whole month. But yeah, if you guys go and check out her page, once again, it's Pucokie, Pucokie, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
If you go and check out her page, she's interviewed several people of several different types. And it's awesome. They're having just free flow discussion. There's a live chat as they're having their discussion and everything. And I was one of the people that she chose to interview. Once again, we didn't know each other at all. I think I said it like on there. I was like, when she had first emailed me about it, like, hey, I'd like to interview you and everything. I wasn't subscribed to her at the time, so I was just like, okay, yeah, sure. And I thought it was just gonna be like a interview, like I literally just had, for some random reason, like a mindset that, oh, it was some woman, older woman, who she's like interviewing me like for her company or something. I don't know. And then turns out like, oh, we're like the same age, and we just really connected on that channel. Like it was really cool. But you guys can go see it yourself. Like I was saying, you should definitely tell us about yourself, like just to start this off.
Well, to start us off, I'm here with my cat Fleur. This is one of my cats. I have two cats. I'm an INFJ, like Denzel said, and I have a channel. I have a YouTube channel where I interview people, but I also like do MBTI stuff, sociotic stuff. I've done a few Enneagram things, but I haven't like made an actual video. It was more hangouts.
Mm,
And I'm really interested in personal development. And yeah, that's about it. So,
nice. Well, I think, what will our first question be then? What would you say? Okay, we won't jump that far just yet. What's new? We can do that, but what's new since our last conversation? Or what do you even remember from the last time that we video chatted? Some of the topics that we could probably like spring off of.
well, we talked about you made a video back then. I'm pretty sure it was like a newer video at the time about extroverted feeling.
Yeah.
And I found that video to be really interesting. I think we were talking about that. We talked about a lot of like inspirational things too. I
Mm.
know that I cried during that interview, but it's not that like unusual for me to do because I cry pretty often. But yeah, Denzel made me cry. Not in a bad way.
Yeah,
but
I was like, oh no, because I didn't expect you to say that. Like, I don't know. It was literally like about 20 minutes into the conversation, and you're like, oh my gosh, why am I crying? I was like, oh no, why are you crying?
but yeah, I don't know. Certain things just really get to me. But yeah, it's funny because I don't really remember too many specifics from the conversation, but I know that I think the interview was like 2 hours, I want to say.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really enjoyed it. Actually, Denzel's interview is one I've already told him this, but it's one of my favorites that I've ever done on my channel. And I've interviewed over 50 people. It's like it's probably in the top 3 at least.
Oh wow.
So
Well,
yeah, I don't know why, but it was just such a moving. I just really I don't know. It was eye-opening, and I just felt like we really connected. And again, like Denzel said, like that was the first time we had ever met. Like literally not even 5 minutes before did we meet, and then we went like live. And I like even said before, because neither of us had really watched each other's channels, someone actually recommended that I interview Denzel, and I was like looking at his videos, and I was like, I really like him, and I subscribed to you. And then yeah, everything happened from there. So
well, I'm really glad that. No, I'm serious. Like, that's an honor to be like one of the top 3. Like, that's crazy. But yeah, I agree with you. I think that we really heavily connected in that video, and it was cool because it was just so authentic. Like, nothing was staged. It was like, yeah, there's a live chat going on and everything, but we really were vibing, and we were talking about some things that were even a little bit off color. Like, I think we brought up cults at one point. that was one of the things. But I think that also like we talked about a lot of different things, and one of the main things was like connection. Like, I often talk about, at least on my channels, everybody knows this. Like, connection is not just my one of my highest like desires and needs. It's my number one absolute. Like, I have to be like connected to people. I have to be like, and not just a like random connection. It has to be like a deep embedded type of connection, one that transcends surface level things. And if I'm unable to root deeply and like just like stick like my tentacles deep into that into that connection, then it's like I don't really I try not to like value it, not value it as heavily, because I think that my not valuing is pretty much what other people would consider as like, oh, that's average. But like I just know that I'm like very intense with that type of connection need. And I think that was what really sprung a lot of our conversation. You talked about how you related to that, and if you want, you could rehash on it.
yeah, I mean, I don't really remember too many specifics, which is so weird because, like I said, it is one of my favorite interviews. I don't know if I really remember too many specifics of any of my interviews, but really, I just know, yeah, I think that connection is such a huge thing, especially for extroverted feelers, especially as people that have it in our like first or second slot. We want to connect with people. We want to have this like group harmony and this sense of depth with another person. And yeah, I mean, like you said, it was very apparent during that interview, and we really got into some deep discussions. So out of that, but yeah.
How would you say that you usually choose the people that you decide to connect with?
Are you talking about like in my personal life?
Yeah.
So I don't know about you, but like for me, I have a like maybe it's a bad habit, but I typically will I try to give everybody the benefit of the doubt, and like I try to be pretty open to everyone. There's certain people that I kind of know right off the bat that maybe it won't really work out. But even at that, I've been surprised. But yeah, some of my deepest connections that I've had are people that I typically befriend people that don't really seem, I don't know how to describe it. Like, I don't really go for like who is necessarily the most popular or something like that. I typically go for someone that's really leading their own life and they're not afraid to like be themselves. And I really value people that have ambition. And sometimes ambition is like kind of seen as a bad thing, but I see it as a drive and like a will, like a passion. I don't like, even though I can still connect with people that don't have that as much, I find it a lot like the deepest or longest relationships that I've had are people that really have this drive to them and also are good people. And I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that answered the question, but.
No, it does. It does. If anything, well, I guess we could dive deeper into that drive that you're talking about. When you're talking about like ambition and everything, do you mean like to achieve something like career-wise, or how do you see that?
Well, I guess it's kind of a broad term. It's not even just career-wise, it's just in their life. I guess ambition to me is not necessarily being like a CEO of a company or something like that. It's kind of how I envision success too. And I know that everybody has a different way of like seeing success, but I see success as something where you're truly happy with every aspect of your life, or at least trying to better yourself and trying to be the best version of yourself. And I see ambition as like that driving power, because it doesn't have to be like this huge thing, and it doesn't have to be that everybody has the same drive necessarily or the same like vision for their life. But basically, I guess I equate ambition with kind of a drive to better yourself. And that's so.
Yeah. So then in essence, you're pretty much saying that you like to have deep connections with people who have a sense of amelioration. So like that ambition is more of a ambition to better themselves, or even like personal development in a way.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing that's because that's something that you have yourself, right?
Yeah, I mean, I do really value that. That's something that, I really try to work on, and I've been trying to work on since I was younger. And I'm definitely not perfect at it by any means, but yeah. And I wouldn't say like all of my friends are necessarily into personal development. Some of them don't really know too much about it, but you don't have to know too much about personal development to still want to be the best version. And I just see that in people. I just couldn't, even though again I can still be close to people like this, I just don't think I would be as close to someone that maybe is going through life, and they just kind of think that things happen to them, rather than they create what they want for their life. And I just really value people that take responsibility. They don't take the blame for things necessarily. Like if it's not your fault, don't blame yourself. But you can't always control everything, but you can always take responsibility for how you react to things. And you can choose to be a victim, or you can choose to be like a creator, or like a leader. So.
Yeah, no, I totally feel you with that. What would you say were probably like the top 3 things that you have been able to see yourself personally develop in ever since you've gotten into personal development?
That's kind of a hard question because it's weird because I've been into personal development for a pretty long time, especially because I'm 25 now. So I'm a little bit older than you, but not we're about the same age.
Mm,
But I got into personal development when I was 13, 12 or 13.
mm,
And it's interesting because I see personal development as a blessing and a curse because it's ultimately a blessing because you know or you may not know everything, but you're tapped into or you learn about things that better yourself and the fact that you have responsibility and that you don't have to be a victim. um, but also it's a curse because if you have that knowledge but you choose to not use it or you ignore it, I think it's almost worse than never knowing it at all.
mm,
So I, again, haven't always been perfect with it, but I would say that throughout my life, I think I've tried to be better with people.
mm,
Um, I've always had like my mom would always say that I was very charming, but I've really learned to value people even more and how to cultivate like successful friendships and relationships that way. Not
mm,
necessarily romantically, but and then also I worked on myself in the sense that I conquered fears that were pretty underlined with me. Like I used to be insanely afraid of public speaking.
mm,
And then when I just basically really pushed myself to get out there and actually conquer that fear in a pretty extreme way. And also, I guess the thing that I am most proud of is the ability to help other people and inspire other people because I know, you know, with this YouTube channel, I've had people contact me, but what even matters more than that, and I'm not saying that those people don't matter, but is to see it in my personal life with my friendships, because I had the opportunity to be in leadership positions, and through that, met a lot of people, and even people that I was already friends with. They would tell me privately or even publicly sometimes, but mostly privately, how much I inspired them to be
mm.
better versions of themselves. So I guess that's it.
Wow. No, that's great, honestly. I think that first of all, public speaking, from what I heard, is the number one fear of Americans. So, so I don't think that that's that bad that you had that fear. If anything, you conquered the most common fear of Americans, which I don't know how true that is nowadays because I feel like everybody's always voicing their opinion. But then again, maybe voicing your opinion publicly and public speaking is probably like different things because if we put you on a stage right now or a pedestal to start voicing that opinion, you know, before people in real time, um, I'm wondering like how likely that would be for the person to be able to like stick by that. But I feel you though. I think that that's great that you've been able to conquer all of that, and you definitely have. I'm not even like surprised that people have been inspired by a lot of the things that you've already said and that you've already posted. And so I feel like as you're already continuing to grow in this, then there's only just so much more that's ahead of you because one of the things that I often think about, and I think Antonia Dodge said it from Personality Hacker, and I'm probably going to butcher this, but I know the concept. She pretty much said that personal development is kind of like she told a story about a man who he had the wrong prescription of glasses or something like that, or he just didn't have glasses at all, so he couldn't see as clearly. And he just kept on postponing and postponing going to the glasses shop to get new glasses. Finally, when he went to get the new glasses and everything just became so much more clear, then he's like, wow, you know how much easier life would have been if I just had these glasses, you know? And I think that that's the same thing with like personal development, especially like you being 25 and you start at the age of 12. Like, I can only imagine, like, if I started that young, if I knew what I knew now, back then. But then I also know that there's people who are like 40 who like talk to me, like I'll be coaching them and they're like, man, if I knew what you knew when I was 24, and it's like, huh. So you can never be, I guess, like too young to start. But the younger, the better. And I think that it's really cool that you got started at such a young age. Could you tell us more about like how that happened?
Yeah, so I don't know if you guys have ever heard of it. I feel like you've heard of this book before, or like I think it was originally a movie and then they turned it into a book. But I might be wrong about this. Is The Secret?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I definitely have.
Yeah, so The Secret I think came out in, I don't know when the book came out. I remember it was like, I was like 13 or 12 or 13 when I first read it / listened to it, because I listened to it first on audiobook.
Mm-hmm.
And that was such a eye-opening experience for me, because I had never heard of the law of attraction or anything like that.
Yeah.
The closest I had ever heard stuff like that was like on the Oprah show, because like I'm obsessed with Oprah and I used to watch
Everybody's obsessed with Oprah.
What?
I said everybody's obsessed with Oprah.
Not everybody,
Yeah,
but
no,
I don't know. I don't get people that aren't, but I guess I do. But everybody's different. But yeah, so that was how I got into it. And for a long time, well, not a long time, but like maybe a year or two, this Secret was kind of something that I would listen to pretty frequently. And once like the internet became more, I guess, accessible, and I was able to like look more things up and kind of get into it, I'm really, like, I would say more than anything else, any other interests that I have, personal development is the strongest and deepest interest that I have.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard for me to even be able to relay the information that I've had over the years, because it's just, I've had so much that it's like hard to kind of break it down to the basics, but I really want to. And some of the first ones that I really got into, like Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, and just kind of new age philosophers or like thought leaders like Ralph Waldo Emerson, Dale Carnegie, Andrew Carnegie, and just like, I don't know, it's a lot of different things, but yeah.
Yeah, no, I feel that. Going off of The Secret, that was like almost revolutionary in a way, like especially being a Christian and everything. I pretty much agreed with what was being said and everything. And being a Christian, then it's like, oh well, I personally believe that, well, this is all orchestrated, by God. You're not necessarily like the universe, although some just see God and the universe as synonymous. But yeah, I see God as like a being that's in control of everything that's going on. And even some of the evil that may happen in the world and everything, or all of the evil that happens in the world, like he permits it for, his own reasoning and everything, but he doesn't cause it, which is a difference. But all that being said, though, when I looked into, like when I'd actually watched the documentary of The Secret, and I thought that was very fascinating. because it was something that I internally already like had an idea of. And from hearing more about it, then it was like, whoa, like these are actual like testimonies of like, what happened with people who had vision boards and, stuff like that. And one of my most recent videos that I posted had to do with self-fulfilling prophecies, confirmation bias, and echo chambers, which I think that ties very heavily into The Secret, because The Secret pretty much is in how you think. It's the idea that what you think attracts what you receive. So in thinking more positively and in expecting positive things to happen in your life and setting your mind and your goal on certain things and fixating it on certain things, then all of a sudden things in the universe start to kind of like create a pathway for you to be able to arrive there. And personally, I really believe in that. Once again, I believe personally that God sets that up, but I still think that it's all a mind thing where, of course, if you focus and zoom in your mind on all the bad and negative things that are happening in life, then that's going to be eventually what all you see. Your mind is going to fixate and it's going to become a habit of yours. It only takes 21 days to form a habit. And so you're going to form this habit of your mind focusing on the negative things in life, on the negative things that happen to you. And we know so many negative people out there who you can ask them certain questions like, oh, like they just always have something to complain about. And then when you try to ask them like, well, what are some things that you're grateful for? Then they have to really rake their minds to think. But if you go the reverse way, then there's people who they have so much to be grateful for that when you ask them like, oh, what did you complain about? Then they also have to exert the same amount of energy to think like, what do I have to complain about? Now, both people have bad things happening in their life and both people have good things happening in their life, but it depends on what they're placing their perspective on, what they're learning to focus on. And you never want to be too extreme. Like, you don't want to be the optimistic person who just pretends like none of the bad things are happening. It's good to acknowledge the bad things, but you don't want the bad things to grab hold of your foot, because as soon as they do, then now you are allowing it, you're granting it permission to drag you even deeper to more of the bad things that are going on. Like I'm thinking in a more spiritual sense, like, you're giving Satan a foothold on things that are going on in your life. And then you also don't want to like focus too much on the good things, because then you can get sucker punched by some of the bad things. And when you're sucker punched, then oftentimes like you can be knocked out for quite a long time. And that could switch you to the negative side. But if you find like a good balance in expecting good things to happen and kind of like fixating your mind on the positive things in life, then your mind kind of like has these like blinders to the distractions of life, and it'll be able to help you to have that ambition that you're talking about, to be able to arrive at where you need to get to. And I think that's a concept that I believe that's really helped me in my personal life.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, what you said about, it's interesting because getting back to the law of attraction and attracting good things in your life, like you said, there has to be a balance. And that's something that I kind of learned over time. Is like, at first I thought, oh, it really, because they do say in the book or the like documentary, the movie, they talk about how the law of attraction is the most powerful law, and it is a very powerful law. I don't think it's necessarily the most powerful, but it is one of the most powerful. And you have to realize, like Denzel said, you have to take it with a grain of salt, because you can't just be sitting in your room and being like, I'm going to be like, if you're like overweight and you want to be in shape, you can't be like, I'm fit, like you can't, there's only so much you can manifest, that's what I'm looking for. But like at the same time, there's always exceptions to that. But I think the best thing you can do is just have positive thoughts. And again, don't be blindsided. Don't be always like looking behind you thinking that there's going to be something bad happening, but just, be realistic in some ways. But I think it's good to have, I think it's better to be on the optimistic side than anything else.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I always prefer to go toward the more positive. And that's not that the bad things are bad. If anything, I think that we kind of like described, or I described FI like this in a way where there's no such thing as like a bad emotion. And FI users, they understand this very well. It's more of like piano keys. And yes, if you are playing certain songs and you play the wrong key, well, that key is not a bad key. It's just bad for that moment. But then if you play that key in the right song, then now, everything has its time and place. And so you can learn a lot from the bad things that happen in your life, and you won't be able to learn from them if you just continue to blind yourself and ignore yourself from them. You can grow from those things. But at the same time, if you fixate too heavily on them, then they can also keep you immobile. They can paralyze you. And I think that that's kind of like going off of like what you were saying. It's interesting to hear an NI dominant saying this, because as INFJs, y'all are like pretty much at the top of the types that like can dream all of these different things about life and everything. Like Plato, I believe that Plato was an INFJ. And one of the things that he said, I'm not going to say it verbatim, but pretty much he said that he came up with all of these different systems that could help the world, but he never really put them into action. And I think it's, of course, because of that dominant NI, it's always thinking about these things, but then inferior SE is like, but I'm not ready yet. I'm not ready yet. Or is this ready? Is this ready? And it's like this hesitancy to like jump into action. What's your relationship with that?
Well, that's very interesting that you asked that, because almost I feel that way right now about what I'm doing on YouTube, and also partly why I'm taking a step back from things, because I feel like, even just in my life, like not even just YouTube, not just social media, but like in my life, I have so many grand visions for how I can see the future going. And there is kind of like that hesitation. I've always had this sense where there's like a wall that I hit. And I just like, for some reason, like almost self-sabotage myself. Like I found this basically throughout my life, that I'll kind of sabotage because I'm just like, oh, I can't do this, or I don't want to be like, I don't know if this makes sense, but when I was younger, I always didn't want to be in the spotlight in the sense of school, like schoolwork and stuff. I just didn't want, like, I, did well in school, but I never wanted to be the best in school because I didn't want people to, and it sounds weird, but I didn't want people to like say, oh, Emily's so smart, and like make a big deal out of it. And if they didn't do that, maybe I would have felt more comfortable really succeeding. It's even the same with like my everyday life. It's like I know what to do and I have so many grand visions, but it's like, so I don't know if it's just procrastination or if it's that sense of not wanting to be the best because you're afraid of like failure or afraid of success. So I don't know if that really answers it, but that's kind of how I feel about things. And like partly why I'm taking a break from all of this is I really need to take a step back and start doing the things that I really want to do without, I found that I've kind of been reactive towards other people, and not in a negative way, but like instead of really controlling my life, I've kind of let others control it. And it's not their fault. It's my fault for like being a little too lenient with my time and like different things. But I realized that I really need to take control to be able to take action on certain things that I want to do. And like, for example, fitness is something that I'm really wanting to get back into. And I'm starting, but and I know that what I can do with myself, but at the same time, it's like, it's scary. And I know a lot of people feel that way about fitness, but yeah, I don't know. That was random, but yeah. So
No, I think I saw the connection there. Well, I guess going off of that, then I think it is interesting. Like looking at your YouTube channel, they often say that the INFJ having FE as your auxiliary function, you're at your best when you're really developing that auxiliary function and everything. And even though maybe like you haven't been doing this like in real life, like in person, this is the second best thing where you've been meeting like over 50 something people and having extensive conversations with them and discussions with them on interviews on your channel. I think that that's really helpful for your FE. You've been able to talk with a whole bunch of people, and this is like helping you to be able to gather more information on humans and how different people work. And then that's a lot for your NI to be able to soak in and gather. So if anything, you taking this social hiatus is going to allow you to be able to like relax your mind and allow your NI to organize all the information that you've just now received from all of these different people, and it's going to organize it. You're going to start having like these epiphanies. It's going to start connecting things. The way I see it is kind of like they often talk about the elephant with the 5 blind men and the elephant, where one blind man is like feeling on the trunk, and then he explains what he's feeling, and the other blind man's feeling on the leg, and they're just feeling on different various parts of the elephant, and then together they're able to collectively say like, oh, well, then this must be an elephant because they have received different puzzle pieces and fragments. When it comes to NI and FE, I think that FE and SE, so all of our functions work together.
yeah.
But especially for NFJs, FE and SE, they work together very well. Like they go out and they're kind of like, you know, gathering that information. Like FE is like making the connections with people, as in like literal, like making the connections, like talking to them and, you know, getting to understand them and all of that. And SE is like helping them get out there and do that. But then it's not till they go back and they really like allow all of that information that they've now hoarded to just sit down and relax. I see that as the blind men now being able to discuss. So one blind man can be holding on to the trunk and feeling on the trunk and everything. But as long as you're still interacting with all of these people, for the sake of the analogy, that blind man is unable to communicate with the other blind man. Hey, what are you feeling over there? Or the other one, like, oh, what are you feeling over there? It's not until you're in solitude and you're in complete silence and you're able to just take a break from the world that these blind men start to now communicate about their own individual experiences. And the more they're able to communicate, then the more they're able to connect things and be like, whoa, this is an elephant, you know? And so I know it's a weird analogy, but that's kind of like what just came to mind with that. And I feel like this is good for you. Like this is good for you to be able to like take that break because you just did a lot. You just ran a marathon. And so now you have that right to go back and rest. And I feel like you're going to come back stronger than ever because you'll have so many insights. You might just randomly, you know how NI works. You'll just be laying there relaxing. And then one day you'll remember a conversation that you had with one of the people that you interviewed on your channel. And it's like, whoa. And all of a sudden that blind man will connect to another blind man. And it's like, now you have this huge insight about humanity and you can write that down. You know, you can record that. And then when you come back at the end of February, March, then you can start presenting all of these new things that you have now found. It's almost like the artists who they go out and they live life. So I think that's more of like an FP kind of thing where it's like, okay, I'm taking a break from myself to go out and like live life, you know? And then when they go out and they live life and everything, then they're coming back to like share a lot of what the life has taught them through their art. So with us, we're communicating like this is our art, this is our art in a way. And you have to allow your NI to be able to organize all of the things that you've just collected before you can come back and give us more. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. And it's interesting because I feel like I really like the blind men analogy with elephant. But the thing is, I have been doing that constantly even since the beginning of my channel. But especially in the last few months, since it's kind of heightened the interviews and a little too, like, so much interaction. And as an introvert, it can become draining, like, to work full time and then go and then do interviews with people, which I love doing, but it also has, you know, some of those conversations, yeah, I take a step back and I like think about them and contemplate them and analyze them. But yeah, I guess really I have been constantly doing this because again, I don't do the interviews like 24/7, but my thing really is mostly the SE aspect, is like of actually putting it out there. So like in this, or doing it, because in this time I plan on working harder than I ever have worked on my channel and just things in general. But it's not going to be, there's not going to be the distractions of like, and also I'll be able to, because I'm limiting, like you said, like kind of limiting that stimulation and stuff, I'll be able to kind of focus on the thoughts that I have, because I really try to write things down. And I will have epiphanies, like you said, about things where I'm like, whoa, this is really insightful that this person said, or, you know, certain things. And so, yeah.
I get that. Yeah, I get that. That makes sense. So how do you think things will be like when you get back?
Well, hopefully a lot better.
Of course. But like, if you can like see a projection of your future self, do you have any thoughts on that?
I mean, I have many thoughts. I guess the word that I have to say is intense. Intense. I mean, maybe that's not the best word, but I have several things that I'm going to be doing behind closed doors. I'm going to be starting a written blog. Not posting it because I really want to not be on any of those platforms, but just like write things, have things written, make content, like actually make videos while I'm in my hiatus. And also I'm starting a podcast.
Nice.
As well. So it's just like a bunch of different things that I really just want to really focus on and not have those distractions and have those, because again, I just really want to interact with people in the sense, like, if I see comments on my channel, I want to be able to interact with those people. Like right now, I'm looking at the chat as well, and even though there isn't too many things on the chat, it's like I'm so like I want to be able to be like, hey guys, like. So I mean, I see you guys. I see Faye the ENFJ. I see Coco. I see. How do you say that?
Wait, hold on.
Jazico.
Maybe, yeah.
And then
Spherical
core. Yeah. So.
Yeah, I was actually planning like I was gonna give you permission actually I was just gonna let that stock up a little bit, and then you start addressing a few of them in a bit. But I just wanted to flesh this out first, because I still think that, yeah, I think this is still like a really great idea for you to do. And to me, it doesn't seem like SE and mobility. I think that especially for you, you're able, it's kind of like me with FE and TI. I'm able to best formulate my best TI opinions and all of that when I've been able to best go out and connect with different people, and see what their opinions on things are. And so with you, you're able to best hop into action, SE, after you've allowed yourself to really make all of these connections, which you have been doing through, like, you've been making a lot of connections and everything. So from what you're saying, it sounds like when you come back, you're talking about intense, you're talking about, like, making like all these videos and everything. You're about to make a podcast. That doesn't sound like an INFJ who's like, oh, I'm like paralyzed and I'm not moving. You sound like one who's gathering up a whole bunch of momentum and inertia and is getting ready to like pull forward.
Yeah.
And so that's why I don't think that it's not as bad of a situation, at least from what I'm hearing, as you may think it is.
No, and I don't think of it as a bad thing, but I mean, there's another side to it as well. I didn't like intentionally mean for this to happen. I think it was definitely time. But there is a bit of a burnout, and also, as you know, and I don't want to get into it too much, but a couple of months ago, I broke up with my boyfriend, and that was hard. That was really hard. And even though I think it was for the best, and certain things that other people don't know about the situation, but that was hard, and I haven't really let myself grieve that. And I also, it's February, and that's kind of like the month where people think about love and stuff. And I'm not really in the mindset to date anybody or be in a relationship anytime soon, but I just really want to give myself some more care and more love. That's why I talk about getting more intense about like exercise and stuff. Because I just really want to, because I have a tendency to kind of neglect those things.
Yeah.
Neglect
Most
myself.
FE inferiors do.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Okay. No, I feel that. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Do you know what Enneagram type you are, by the way? I think this will be like the last thing before we start answering questions and other stuff in the chat. Hey, Shantae.
Well, I believe that I'm a 9. That's the one that I most resonate with. But I also have like 2 in my tri type.
Okay.
But yeah, but I most resonate with a 9 wing 8. But more particularly like just 9 in general. I find that I really just, I don't know how to describe it, but I do really seek balance. And my mom always has told me that I can be very just, I have a tendency to be lethargic and to be kind of lazy in a way, and just kind of be not lazy, but like slow moving in some ways. And like, I think part of that is the 9 quality, but also it's kind of like I need to interact with the world more. And that's kind of partly why, again, the February thing.
Got you. Yeah, no, that makes sense. I figured that you may have been a 9. So that's actually why I asked that, because it sounded like there was a lot of like 9 language. Do you know your instinctual variant by any chance?
I believe it's SXSO.
Okay. Then that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. So I actually recently found out that I'm a 9 too. I'm a 9 wing 1, and I'm SOSX, and that, like, uncovering that has just so much for me, because originally I thought that I was a 2, as most FE users do. And it's funny because I was one of the FE users who was telling other people, like, not every FE user is a 2.
Yeah.
And then turns out I'm not one either. People were like, oh no, like they think that I'm a 3. They think that I'm a 3. And I was like, I don't relate as much to the 3, but there were huge aspects because I thought that I was a 2-wing 3.
Yeah.
So I was like, no, there's a lot of aspects of the 3 that I relate to. So, I mean, I guess it's just, like Enneagram has so much to do with what you can't see about yourself. Like, oh, well, you're blind. You don't know that you're actually trying to create an image. And so it's like, oh, well, how am I supposed to argue with that? Like, if you're all claiming that I can't see something, well, then, maybe it is. So I really tried to like break out of this cognitive dissonance with myself. Like, maybe I am image seeking. Maybe I am this. And I was really trying to look at it, and I'm looking at the core motivations and everything. And I'm like, well, this just doesn't resonate with my upbringing and, stuff like that. I don't have this drive to like achieve, even though it may look like that. It's not coming from where you think it is. So I recently got profiled by a practitioner, and I tried to just be like objective as possible and everything. And then I thought I was really trying to figure out if I was a 2 or if I was a 3, because the thing that shied me away from 2 was that they disintegrate into 8, and I'm like fearful of 8. So I was like, oh no, yeah, no, that's not me. Like that's just not me at all. Like I suppress anger. I run away from anger, and I don't like, yeah, that's just not me. And I grew up with a lot of 8 energy. And so that kind of like paralyzed me growing up a lot of times, especially being African and everything. And so when I heard that, like, oh, they disintegrate into 8 and everything, then I was like, oh, well, in that case, no, like then this isn't me. So I guess I am a 3, but I still didn't really resonate. So when I took the profiling session and everything, I thought that she was comparing between 2 and 3. And at the end, she tells me that I'm a 9. I had never looked into 9 before. I was like, I posted the audio on my channel, some tidbits of it, and you can literally hear me going, huh. Like I was really caught off guard. Like, oh, I didn't expect that. And so she's like explaining it and everything, and she's talking about like, how we handle certain things. And I was like, whoa, okay, no, this actually fits very well. And then I looked into the social 9, and that I couldn't stop highlighting in my book as I was reading it. And it just explained so much. It dug into my childhood, which is the first thing that the first time the Enneagram has done that. Because even when I thought I was a 2, I never really felt like, oh, well, when I was younger, I was unloved and stuff like that. I didn't really have that. I was just like, oh, but this, maybe I just don't know it. Maybe that's one of the things I'm blind to. And so all of that being said, I'm a 9 as well. And from what you're saying, and especially being sexual, social, and in your case, that does make sense. And I feel like it's interesting then that I use that word of inertia, because that's kind of like what we rotate around. And once again, like I made a whole video on inertia one time. So yeah, I've just thoughts that I was spitballing.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. Yeah. It is, it's funny because I also, one of the first Enneagram types that I typed as was a 2.
Mm.
I've typed as 2 and 1, but 9 has really resonated with me the most for sure. Oh, Megan Lavoda's here.
Hey, okay, yeah. So now we're about to hop onto this like real soon. Yeah. So speaking of ENFJ 2s, Megan is one, and she's also an SX dominant. So
Yes.
yeah. Well, did you want to address any of these first?
Yeah, we can definitely do that.
All right. Well, you take lead.
Okay, let's see. Okay. Faye the ENFJ. People are in touch with what they want and put in the self-work to make it happen. Yeah. Yes, I agree. For personal development or just things in general, you have to want to do it. You can't change anybody. You can't make someone be a certain way. They have to want to make the change and want to develop themselves. How do you say that?
Oh, I'm just guessing. I say spherical.
Spherical core.
Spherical core.
Hello, I just had a question. Could you maybe talk about some of the most evident functional differences between the INFJ and INFP when looking at their way of thinking and handling emotions? That's a hard one. I definitely think, and you can take this away at any time, but I think that INFPs are a lot more in touch with their personal emotions than INFJs. I think, INFPs are always categorizing their emotions and they're able to understand it in the moment, especially. Whereas, I feel like INFJs, at least for myself, I don't always know how I'm feeling. I can typically feel the feelings of other people, but I don't always know how I feel until I actually take a step back and think about it. And whereas I think INFPs are way more able to tap into those things. And also NE, extroverted intuition, versus NI, which INFJs have. And NE's a little bit, it's constantly expanding and thinking of different things. And NI does the same thing in a way, but it's way more narrow focused and kind of like a tunnel. When we think of things, they kind of build onto each other, whereas I envision NE, extroverted intuition, as kind of expanding out and even kind of tapping into random things, tapping in and out of those things rather than kind of keeping it in a tunnel, so to speak. What would you say, Denzel?
Yeah, for me, so I'm ENFJ, but I know plenty of INFJ and INFP. My younger sister's an INFP, and my best friends are INFJs. I would say that the most clear distinctions definitely comes with the FETI axis. INFJs are more externally warm, but internally logical.
Yes.
Internally cold. And it's kind of like you can sense that they're like I said, they're externally warm, they're trying to be accommodating and everything, but when you're really getting to know them, you can tell that there's an internal cold, not as in mean or heartless, but internally they're dealing with logic. And so I think that one good example that I think that Michael Pierce in his INFJ Revisiting the INFJ video, he explained such a great example that I actually also resonate with. And I was just having this conversation with Jamila, who's an ISFP, so close enough, the same FITE axis that a lot of that all INFPs have. And with that, so with FJs, they are trying to, especially NFJs, INFJs, they're trying to understand how they remove themselves.
I think I know what you're trying to say.
Yeah.
If this makes sense, is emotions. So for INFJs, when we have a vision or something that we want, or things that we want to accomplish, I don't know if this is really going into what you were trying to say, but we disconnect ourselves from that. Mm-hmm. We are connected in some way, but we kind of disconnect from that. It's not we don't get our we don't feel emotionally gratified by whatever that is. It's almost like Plato and his Republic. He was able, he separated it. It wasn't like, you know, once it was out there, it wasn't something like, I think that INFJs can almost be seen as like going against, they can be, you know, have some interesting moral things that they do, like that are a little bit like off colored and almost like, why would you, you know, do this? Or like, why is this the way that, like, why doesn't this bother you? And it's because INFJs are able to separate that. But INFPs always have this like internal categorization or like monologue of like what, or catalog of what they want, or I mean what their emotions mean, and they might very much resonate with their emotions, and they don't have this like separation. It seems very personal. Everything they do is very personal.
Yeah, with INFPs, that's kind of like their superpower. The deeper that they can get into that emotion and everything, the more they're able to really like understand it. While with INFJs, it's not necessarily the opposite, but more of like they're able to like detach more readily, especially having TI as an auxiliary, as a tertiary function. So going off of that, another thing is that I often hear a lot of like NFPs, especially they're the ones who are usually coining the phrase, or like saying phrases such as like people are inherently selfish, and that's always been something that I'm like, no, we're not. And then when you understand type, it's like, okay, because I understand where they're coming from, and I've had this debate with like many FI users and everything, and it's like, no, it makes sense why you're coming from that place. And once again, Michael Pierce spoke about this again, and he compared two philosophers, Nietzsche, who was an INTJ, so FI, and then he also compared, I forgot who it was. I think it was Bertrand Russell. No, maybe that's not it. But it was an ENTP. And he said, and pretty much FI, who? No, it wasn't Plato. Yeah, it was someone else. I forgot his name, but it was an ENTP, and pretty much the FI users, they operate from an internal desire, an internal passion that they have. And so when they are making decisions, their natural process is, how will this make me feel? What are my values? What is my moral compass? What will be most authentic to me? What do I want? It's like FI is like, what do I want? TE is like, okay, how do we get it? While with FE and TI, it's more so, it's not necessarily going off of these values and this authenticity, but it's more of going off of principles. Like, I did that not because I had this internal insatiable desire, but because it made sense. I don't get this really good feeling from doing a good deed to somebody. It's just natural for me because it just makes sense to do that, because we're operating from TI internally. So an INFJ, they're not, and I'm not saying that FI users are selfish. They can be selfish, but they're not selfish. They're more self-centered, which is a difference. Selfish is more of like arrogant, kind of like a complete like active negligence to people and just self-seeking in that way. But self-centered, that's how you get people who are all about like self-care and everything, you know, and that's good. We need people who are, you know, who can help us on how we can take care of ourselves and how we can refer back to ourselves and everything. But INFJs are not as much like that because of that FETI axis. They more readily like separate themselves. Another thing is that FI users, they like to sort of like dry out the emotions of a situation. On my INFP versus INFJ video, I gave an analogy that just came straight off the head about, I'm gonna try and like make it as simple as possible, since I don't have like pictures and everything right now to show you guys. But I thought of like pretty much like a mailbox. You know how like they have mailbox walls with all the different mailboxes, and each one could be labeled a different emotion. And the INFP does not have access to any of the emotions behind there until somebody grants that INFP like that access to it. So if the INFP wants to be very happy or very angry or whatever it may be, then when somebody kind of like gives it a reason to be able to open up that mailbox, behind that mailbox is a jawbreaker. And they enjoy really sucking on the jawbreaker and like kind of like getting everything from it. And that's why this is for like every emotion. They like to really get to the very bottom of every single emotion. They really dive in and they experience the many different colors of emotion. So if we're making emotions colors, then FE users tend to look at emotions like red, yellow, green, blue. You know, like that's just like kind of like what it is. But an FI user is like, no, 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 it's not just red. It's burgundy. No, 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 no. That's not just green. That's emerald, and that's I don't even know. Give me a random green lime. I don't know. You know, that's how it tends to be. We FE users tend to see emotions more black and white. So NFJs, FJs in general, they tend to see emotions like more kind of like black and white, and they don't really like have that jawbreaker of emotion experience. While FI users, FPs, they tend to like really like dive into the emotions and like they want to experience all the depth behind it. Did I explain that right? Jamila approves.
No, I also approve. I think you said it really well. Yeah, it is interesting about like the difference between FE and FI. Yeah, it's funny that you also were talking about earlier how you said that NFPs kind of will think that they'll say something like that people are inherently selfish, because I also never resonated with that. Like, I feel like over the years I've had to be more self-centered, as you were saying, like kind of try to be even more in myself, because I have realized that when I overextend myself, it sometimes ends badly. So yeah, I really get that. Like, and the whole mailbox thing with FI was really interesting.
Yeah, thank you. I feel like I kind of butchered it. I did better in the INFP versus INFJ video explaining it. But yeah, that's how I see it. And a lot of INFPs commented like, whoa, I definitely resonate. There was a whole bunch of INFPs who commented also saying that I thought I was INFJ for like the past 2 years and stuff like that. And I'm still getting comments like that. It's like, but now I know that I'm an INFP. And that's not a bad thing. You know, it's INFJs and every personality type is equally valuable, no matter how rare or no matter how common. And you're still an individual at the end of the day. And that's what I just try to encourage everyone, to just know your accurate personality type and embrace it and embrace who you are. But yeah, I think that those are like the main differences with INFJ, INFP. And I think the last thing, which is kind of like going back to what I was saying with like Michael Pierce, was that the INFJ, when they detach themselves from like the situation so they can understand, they're more interested in understanding the process on how somebody arrived at a certain action. And so one example would kind of be like, I've been watching, well, I finished it now, the show You on Netflix. Have you seen it yet?
No, I haven't.
Oh, you should check that out. I was beginning to think, well, I did start to think like, okay, this is kind of like not as cool, but whatever. It's only 10 episodes. And then after like episode 8, then it's like, oh, like everything, it was definitely worth it from there going. But anyway, I've watched that. And afterwards, like, it was interesting discussing with Jamila, because I was just thinking to myself, like, wow, I could understand everywhere where he was coming from. And once again, now I'm starting to like try and learn what's the difference between just NFJ and then me being a 9. So like I'm still trying to like parse that out. I don't know how much of this has to do with me being a social 9 and everything. So like we're known for like seeing all perspectives and everything. But I think that's also like just an NFJ thing as well. And even though I agree that, you know, a lot of things that were done, I'm not going to spoil it for you and anybody else who's watching but hasn't watched you yet. But even though, like, you know, I won't agree with, like, I don't justify any of the bad things that happened. I could totally understand the reasoning behind it. And that's more interesting to me than saying this is wrong, or, you know, just kind of like stamping it in that way. While with FI users, they are more readily able to say like, you know, whoa, that's wrong, you know, or like this was just bad. This person's a bad person because of this. But the NFJ, the INFJ, they're more like, I wouldn't really say this person's a bad person. I could see why they arrived at this point. And then Michael Pierce gave the illustration where it's like, this is where it gets bad because the INFJ is like, you know, looking at some kind of like serial killer or something and like interviewing them. And then all of a sudden it's like, I can actually see how this made sense to you. And it's like, okay, you know, but that would totally be me, because it's like, wow, like you start having sympathy for that person because it's like, wow, I really see how this made sense to you. And I don't justify what you're doing. Hey, you still did wrong. But because now I understand how that made sense to you, then it's like you can't really hammer them as heavily. While with FI users such as like INFPs and everything, that's much more uncommon. They're more likely to just say like, no, this is bad. This deems you as like a bad person. Does that make sense? Do you agree with that?
Yes. I totally resonate with, like, I still remember that, like, from Michael Pierce's video about like the serial killer, because like I've definitely known some not so great people in my life, and I was actually pretty screwed over by a certain individual. Like, I mean, he's definitely not watching, and also this was like years ago. It was a guy that I was friends with, and I have actually made a video about him, but I didn't go into like every angle, and I also didn't go into like the things that he did necessarily. But basically there was some pretty, you know, horrid things that he did, I mean, to me as well. And I still don't see him as a bad person. I think that there are things that he did that were not good. But people are like, why, how can you even see this person as still a good person? Or like, it's just like I separate myself from that, and I realize that, yeah, he did kind of screw me over in some ways, but it doesn't mean that he's evil or bad necessarily.
Yeah, I actually really relate to that. Similar thing. I don't know what exactly you're talking about, but I was also screwed over by many people. But I'm thinking of one particular one particular instance where this person just really like did some crazy stuff, and I still don't understand the complete reasoning behind it, and that's the biggest part. Like, I still want answers from this person. I haven't been able to like see this person ever since, but I can't hold a grudge to this person. And a lot of people have looked at me like, oh my gosh, are you serious? You know, there's another person who actually, I'm even different from this person, that tried to put me in jail. You know, and it's like, wait, what? Like she was really jealous of Jamila at the time, and she decided to, you know, falsely accuse me of various things, and she was like vehemently like trying to put me in prison. And yeah, it's a crazy story. And
That is crazy, because this also has to do with legal things.
really
Yeah.
interesting. Huh. We should talk about it one time off air.
Yeah.
But yeah, like even just looking back, I just simply cannot hold a grudge toward this person. And I don't consider either people to be bad people because, and once again, this is something that I read about the 9. So I don't know if it has to do with FETI or 9, or if it's kind of like synonymous, but everybody has their own internal logic. Everybody has their own internal reasoning behind things. And for me, as long as I'm able to understand where you were coming from and you didn't have ill intent, I just can't deem you as a bad person. Now, if you had ill intent for something, then that's a different story. And it's like, but as long as you're like actually genuinely sorry for what you did, or you in your right mind really did think that you were doing the right thing and all of that, then, and that's, I just can't, I can't really like pass that kind of judgment onto someone. And yeah, that's, so I relate to you in that sense.
That's so interesting. That is really interesting. Also, just kind of getting into like socionics a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
It is funny how like the beta quadra that we're in, ENFJ in Myers-Briggs terms, our quadra consists of ENFJs, INFJs, ESTPs, and ISTPs.
Right.
And they say that the beta quadra is the most dramatic quadra.
Yeah.
And I think it's really true. And almost it seems like people react to us in a very dramatic way. Like we can be divisive as people, even if we're not like, you know, I see some people that do have ill intentions or maybe are kind of not the greatest people, and yet people don't respond to them the same way as they do maybe a beta type person.
Why do you think that is?
I have many reasons to think that, but I think it's the kind of, it's hard for me to put in words, but we have like an intensity about us, and we also, I think the combination of all of the functions kind of make us into this weird mutant, like in the way that like we are generally, at least, well, especially the NFJs, but even like ESTPs particularly, are really good with people. And we're all of those types have kind of a manipulative quality to them in a way. And it's not always a bad thing, but I think people, it's like, it's hard to explain. I'm really not doing a great job of it.
No, why would you? I get you, because Michael Pierce spoke about that too, and it made sense to me, where I immediately resonated with it. Where the beta, so NFJ or STP, they can think something in their head, but then their actions may say otherwise, not because they're fake, but because we're going by principles. We're not as attached to our emotions. So even though I may feel this way about you, my principle is there's a baseline for how to treat certain people. And you should always still treat these people this way. For an FI user, so like people in the Delta Quadrant with the NFP and STJs, they just see that as fake. And not saying that, they can't be that way, but it's harder for them, or it's less natural. While with us, we naturally, and this is actually the problem that the Deltas see with us, like we see things in the way that we see them, and then we see things the way that other people are seeing them, and then we kind of like, it's so hard to explain it without the images that Michael Pierce had. You guys just have to go watch Michael Pierce's video on the quadrant.
I feel like this has been an advertisement for Michael Pierce's channel.
Yeah, and you interviewed him, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so cool. But yeah, like if you just watch that, like it'll explain everything. But pretty much, I agree. Like betas, I think that we, in the most modest, humble way possible, are just the best with people, because our functions are so people focused, and that's just my opinion. I could be wrong, but from the way I see it, it seems like it's so like people focused, and it's all about the revolution and trying to like sway the way that society is moving and all of that. And I think maybe even I know that for the ENFJ, the revisiting ENFJ video that Michael Pierce hosted, he said one of the things that he said was like we can be seen as like very upright and almost without blemish, to the point that even one small like scandal or something could glare more heavily than any other type. That's pretty much what he said. That's essentially what he said. And it's like, whoa, that's so true. Like, look at people like Martin Luther King Jr., where, and this is for like a lot of different like, celebrity figures, but because with the betas, it seems like they seem so perfect, I guess. They're, especially with INFJs, like you guys are always like so praised and everything. Then it's like when that vase has been held up so high and then it drops, then it shatters very heavily. It reminds me of a quote or lyric that one of the rappers that I listened to, Lecrae, he said something like, "They lift me up so high that I'm surely about to fall. The higher that I go, the more unforgiving they are." So I think that probably has like a big part to play with it, that we put ourselves so much in front of society, and in doing that, we tend to look like very good role models. But then in being a good role model with great power comes great responsibility. And so the smallest thing can like make people like just be like, whoa, because we are such a dramatic and active progressor.
Yeah, I agree with that. Also, I don't know if you've watched Leon from Type Tips.
I don't think
he actually has a video where he talks about each of the quadras and how they appear like physically. And he said that, which I agree with, and it even says it like in Socionics, is that especially NFJs have a regal quality about them. Like it's almost like royalty. Which is interesting.
Wow, you should definitely link me that video or put it in the comment section after the broadcast. I'm gonna also put Michael Pierce's videos that I was referring to in the comments section for everyone who's watching post live stream to go and check out. But yeah, that is interesting though. I could see that.
Yeah.
Well, is there anything left?
I think people are just listening more so than interacting. But yeah, Jeffrey Sherman.
Kind of like what happened last time we had our session too, and then although people started like to threaten us not to get off, so I guess that's kind of good this time that we're not being threatened. Like I remember that. Like, do you remember that? Like, there was like several different people like, no, if you guys end this broadcast, we're gonna. Yeah, but this has been great though, and I'm looking forward to seeing you come out of your cocoon after February and flap your wings and see just all of the great content that you're going to be putting forward. You're still going to be textually active, right?
Yeah, I mean, well, yeah, like I will still respond to phone calls and text.
Okay.
But other than that, people can only reach me in person, so.
Yeah. Got you. Okay, no, I'm just making sure because I might butt in every once in a while just to check on you and see what you've come up with, and like if I've had thoughts and ideas and stuff, and I like toss them your way. But
thank you.
Cool. Yeah, no problem. Do you have any last words, Emily?
I think my last words would be to talk about how awesome you are, and I think that also, congratulations again. I know I've said it, but you guys are both in the room. Congratulations on getting married.
Oh, okay, girl. I see you changed your hair. That is nice.
Thank you. I mean, I cut it because I really want to. I mean, I just want my hair to be healthier. I'm gonna grow it out again, but yeah, thank you. It's a change for sure.
Are you sure you're not cutting things out of your life? Because, people change their hair as a representation of the phase of life that they're in.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that is part of it. Like, I mean, like Denzel knows, and I mean, I think you probably know too, but like, I recently went through a breakup 2 months ago, and just kind of like new changes have happened. So yeah, it's kind of naturally like, even 2019, it was like I kind of wanted to start anew. So.
Okay, girl. Well, thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Really appreciate that.
Yeah.
Well, I think that you're very awesome too, and I'm really glad that I was able to catch you tonight before you went on your hiatus. And the cool thing about YouTube is that I'm always thinking really long term. So I be thinking about stuff like the videos that I'm making right now. I don't have like an insane amount of subscribers, but this sounds a little bit morbid, but not the way that I think about it. When I'm dead and gone, people always look at what you've put out like after you're gone. Like Michael Jackson was popular while he was alive, but he did not receive nearly as many like listens to his music and everything, or as much attention until he passed away, because that's just how people are. So I don't know, like I just think of stuff like, just put out whatever I can right now. And one day, even if it's hundreds of years from now, or decades from now, people come across this again, like, who was this Emily? Who was this Denzel? And then things that we were saying right now are causing ripples into our legacy. And I feel like a lot of things that you've shared today, they might impact and help somebody even far beyond what you may perceive. So I appreciate your vulnerability today, and I appreciate you, just being free to come and like have this interview with me.
Well, thank you. And it's so funny that you say that, because I think about that all the time, as morbid as it does sound. But I even think like, I mean, it's hard to say, but like, you're 24, I'm 25, like we're still young.
Oh yeah.
Think about it. And most people, I mean, we, in the grand scheme of things, we haven't been doing this for that long. And I think that maybe I always think of not necessarily in the present moment. Like I know videos that will probably be more popular in the present versus like in the future. But that's also like why I do the interviews, is like, it's not for now, because I don't get the interviews. If I cut the interviews out, I probably would have more views on average on my videos, but I do the interviews so people can look back on them.
Exactly.
Really,
yeah. I totally agree with that. Because once again, people appreciate things once there's just been a lot of time passed by there. So that's just visionary thinking all the way. But awesome. Well, you enjoy your cocoon. We have one more day with you before you disappear. But thanks for featuring on the channel once again. You're welcome back anytime. Guys, make sure that you go and subscribe. Once again, it's Pucokie, Pucokkie. Look that up, search her, subscribe, watch the videos. Don't be one of the people who waits 50 years from now to watch the video, because then you're going to miss out on the glasses that you could have been wearing all of these years. And who knows what things that you're skipping over. That's just some perspective for you.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. But all right. Well, everyone, y'all have a good night. And thanks for tuning in. leave your comments, questions, concerns, and we will see y'all next time.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.